Hi there and welcome to my channel. Today's project is for the VICKI BOUTIN design team, and this week we're working projects that feature the new powder pigments and the texture paste, and I'm going to create something a little bit fun. It's a tone-on-tone look for this page, and I'm going to use these two elements prominently on my layout. So you're going to see that I'm going to use a foundation paper. I have not yet, so I already swatched my colors on a piece of paper, and I found that when I added the yeso, the colors went a little bit neon. And for this particular project, I want to show you how versatile they are, and I want to show you how nice they are to work with. So I'm going to start. My idea is I'm going to document a picture of my family, of all of us, a couple years ago on one of our fall outings. I have already converted the picture to black and white because I want the colors to show nicely and to show you how nice and easy these are to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of the powder pigment. I'm going to use cherry tart, which is that reddish tone, with a little bit of coral macaroon. It's going to give me like a rich, very rich red, but it's not going to look like blood when I add it to my page. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing the powder with a little bit of liquid water, in this case, to make it watercolor. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to splatter some of the color on my foundation paper, and I'm going to add water to it and just going to help move it around to create that watercolor look with my brush. I'm using the round brushes from Vicki's watercolor brush set. These are soft bristles and going to give me the look that I want to go for. So you're going to see that I'm going to start small. I'm not gonna go big. I'm gonna start small. Now you can also use the kissing technique for this, but I find that I wanted to control the way it's gonna look, and you're gonna see that slowly I'm gonna create a zigzag of color, all in warm tones. So now that I have the pink, the reddish pink in order, I'm gonna add a little bit of the orange powder onto the watercolor base that I created, and then I'm gonna mix it around, and I'm gonna go ahead and start adding the next I'm gonna say continue following my watercolor, and you're gonna see that I'm slowly zigzagging the color. Along the way, I am gonna lift the paper just to give it some movement, have the watercolor move nicely. Now here is this is optional, but I just didn't want to have to have all that water kind of soak into the paper. So what I chose to do is blot the extra water that is sitting on top of the paper with my paper towel, and along the way I pressed and created the impression of the paper towel. I did not go fully, just in some areas, and what that does is just kind of soaks up the paper, leaving a faint impression, which I love because it gives a little bit of distress to the background. Now again, I'm gonna continue working in the same fashion. I am not cleaning my little acrylic sheet. Instead, I'm choosing to add the powder onto the bases that I've already created, so that it helps me move in the transition of the colors as I work my little watercolor background from the top to the bottom of the page. So you're gonna see that for the next color I'm gonna add extra orange, and that's just gonna tone that coral tone into more of a pumpkin color, and then I'm gonna continue so until I'm gonna reach yellow. Now one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that I am working in sections. I am not stopping, like, in between to let the areas dry. And just one of the ideas is that's going to help me with the transition, because the color is still fresh, so the colors are going to mingle together. You can still see the difference in like the little blurbs. Some of the areas mix nicely, some don't. But it's better to work continuously than to let it dry. If you let completely this dry completely, it's gonna soak into the paper. You're still gonna get that transition, but it's gonna be more defined. This way you still see the transition, but it's not as defined. So again, like I said, I continue working. I'm gonna get into the yellow. You're gonna see that it's slowly the look, I'm gonna say, of the watercolor is kind of a zigzagging. When I came to the yellow, I realized that I needed to add extra yellow just to tone down that orange tone that I had. So I added extra powder pigment, and then just mix them together. Again, like I said, I'm using the bases that I started with, and I just add water and extra pigment to work towards the color that I want. So it's going to help me with the transition of the colors. And then you're going to see that when I get to the end of the watercolor, I'm going to add a little bit of green onto the mixture, and this is going to kind of bring it into that brownish tone that I'm looking for, that is going to give me that ochre tone. And again, the way that I work this watercolor background is the same way that I work most of my backgrounds, is by adding a little bit of water onto the page, just a tiny bit, and then add the powder, not the powder, sorry, the watercolor on top of it, and help those things move together with the brush. You can see that I lift the paper just to help it move all the water that's sitting on top of the paper, and then I'm going to soak up the extra water. I don't want it to soak into the paper. I'm gonna soak it up with a paper towel and slowly and faintly press the paper towel to create the distressed look on the background. And then I am gonna set it aside to dry completely on its own. I am not gonna use my heat gun. I'm gonna let it dry on its own. Fortunately, here in Toronto, it's starting to get a little bit cold, so the heaters are on, so that helps with the drying process a little bit faster than regularly. Now you're gonna see that I work my layers for the picture outside of the camera, and like I said, I transform my picture from the colorful fall picture to black and white. One, because we're wearing totally different colors of clothing. I had a purple jacket, my daughter had a teal, my son had navy, my husband had black, so it was really colorful. And there was only like dirt behind us because it was in the pumpkin patch and all the pumpkins had been picked. So I decided to better transform it to black and white. I play with a few layers of paper, try to keep everything very neutral, but having accents of yellow and reddish papers from the Wildflower and Honey collection, which is what I'm gonna, because I want to bring those colors into the background and bring them onto the picture. So now here's the fun part. I'm gonna start working with the texture paste, and my idea is I want to create a tone-on-tone application of the texture paste on top of the watercolor. So I am gonna mix a little bit of the texture paste with the same colors that I use for the background. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of the cherry tart, mix it with some of the texture paste, and I'm gonna use the hexagon or the beehive stencil to create the impression. So you're gonna see that I'm gonna put it on the paper, and I'm gonna add a little bit of the first mixture, which was the cherry tart with the texture paste, just to the top part, kind of following the area that I have behind the watercolor. And then I'm gonna continue by adding a little bit of orange to the pre-made mix that I had already of the pinkish tone, and then kind of pull the color or push the color through the stencil, following the watercolor line. You're not gonna see that much difference in the colors, but right now, but when it dries you can see them, but the colors are so close together that it's really faint. But the nice thing about it is that it does look like a texture background, that it changes the color, but how do I put it, tone on tone. So that means that it looks like a texture background that was painted. Now the difference between this, if I would have just added the texture paste before I added the watercolor, I would have still been able to cover the texture paste, but it would have been a different look. Not all the texture paste would have been the same color. I would have some parts of it showing as white. I would have had a more I'm gonna say not even up color application. It would be just kind of splotchy, the same way that I'm adding the watercolor. So that's what I wanted to use, a tone on tone. And I continue working the same way, adding some yellow, adding more white, just to create that nice transition from that pinkish tone to the yellow. And I think I achieved it. It looks really nice. I set it aside to dry. Like I said, it takes a little bit longer to dry than gesso, but it's well worth it to leave it to dry on its own. Once that's completely dry, I'm gonna add just a few accents. So I'm bringing one of Vicki's water markers. These are from like her first collection. I'm using the black marker, and I'm just gonna add a few dashes through the hive, just because I'm using a lot of black in the picture. So I want to bring some of it onto the background, and I'm also going to bring a little bit of gold just to give it a little bit of shine. And because a lot of the accents in the Wildflower Honey collection have a lot of gold accents, I want to bring some of that into the background. So you're going to see that I'm just drawing some dashes on the paper. Now that that is set and ready to go, I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of build my layout. Like I said, for my picture, I used quite a bit of some pieces of ephemera, some pieces of paper, some of the cut apart cards, and I just created this cluster. And then I'm just gonna embellish. I'm gonna embellish it by using some of the chipboard stickers. I brought that tag just because it had the coral tone that I'm looking for. I'm gonna play with some circle shapes. I'm adding that little yes from the cardstock sticker, and then the little chipboard heart, the orange one. And then you're gonna see that I'm gonna also use the black and white chipboard from that says make time for what really matters. And then that my title is going to be Our Story, and that comes from the little sticker booklet, and it says your story. What I did is I simply just cut the Y away. away, yeah, because I wanted to use the our story. And then to have the movement that I created, that zigzag in the page, I'm actually gonna bring those beautiful butterflies that are layered onto this layer and just gonna place them so that your eye follows the line that I created with the watercolor. Now wherever I added a butterfly, I thought that I needed something extra that was just sitting there like in limbo. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create small little clusters, and for that I'm going to use the wheel, the ink wheel, the metallic ink wheel, and some of the stamps. I think the first one is from the All the Good Things, and is the one that has the little hearts and the script stamp. And the second one is from Field Notes, the one that says Happy Days, and it had the flowers. So you're going to see that I'm going to stamp some hearts, and then I'm going to stamp the word Happy Days in a first, second, and third generation. And what I mean by that is I applied the first stamping image fully with as soon as I print it from the ink, and then I just kind of continue stamping the same sentence so that it fades away as I stamp more. And then I'm just gonna bring a few accents of gold, bring in some of the chipboard and some puffy hearts, and that's about it. I added my lines of journal underneath the title, and I love how this turned out. I love the background. I love the fact that it's on tone and tone, that there's texture, that I just love it. And I hope you try it. As always, if you have any questions on how this came together, do not hesitate to contact me. Check out the stencils, but check out the powder and also the texture paste. It's so great to work with, and I think you're gonna love it. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys, and I hope to see you soon.